If you're just now joining this video podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Danielle J. Martin, your host on Behind the Spotlight podcast. Now, I'm doing something very different this time. So I'm actually recording a podcast while I'm also recording a video version of that. So if you are listening right now, you are more than welcome to go tune in on my YouTube channel at Danielle J. Martin. And you can actually catch not only this video, but other previous videos that I have recently posted. And if you're new to this podcast, I encourage you to go back and listen to my recent series, Overcoming, where we dive into the past, the present, and the future of individuals who have really navigated through that to become who they are today. But if you are joining for the first time on this weekly podcast series, welcome. I'm super excited because I am stepping even more out of my comfort zone by providing you guys a weekly podcast. In case you don't know, when I first started this series or started my podcast, it was really intentional on taking it series by series, right? And I was really interviewing other people, and really the attention wasn't on my voice or wasn't on me. And so I'm really coming out even more based on the feedback and prayer as well, because prayer is number one. But I've been receiving much feedback on people wanting to know more, people wanting to hear more resources, more tools, more insights about many things about what it takes to become the better version of you, right? I'm going to be even more honest with you right now and say I'm still journeying through that. But that's okay, because what I love about the journey I'm on is I want to do it with people who are also on that path as well. I'm trying to figure out what the greatest version of me looks like. I will say that I see her all the time. I have visions and glimpses of her. She pops up in my head. And so in order for me to move and actually align with that person, I have to take more steps forward. And taking steps forward actually start with being or stepping out of your comfort zone. So for me, stepping out of my comfort zone recently has been doing more than what I've been providing for my podcast. I've really just been shedding light on it I would say once a year. Whereas now I'm giving you guys weekly videos, weekly podcast episodes. And that is a little terrifying, but it's okay because we're going to be journeying through this together. So today, I want to talk to you guys about about coming out of your comfort zone, about what I just said, and why it's beautiful actually growing in dirty places. Wow. So that statement right there says a lot. So growing in dirty places, what does that look like? Well, first, when I thought about this, I was thinking of what I really love to do the most. I love to cook, okay? I enjoy cooking. It's interesting because I know my boyfriend is listening to this. He's like, when do you like to cook? But it is so real. It's so true. I love to cook. And what I really love about cooking is that I love just the process of it all, right? I like to put on my music, my R&B, whether it's gospel sometimes, and I will just be in my own zone. And I just love the overall process of how the ingredients can come together. And then when you look at what you're able to create and make sure that it tastes good too, it even is just like a lot better, right? But sometimes, I'm not going to lie, what I dislike about cooking is the process of how long it takes. Like sometimes depending on what you're cooking, right? It could take, 5 to 10 minutes or 20 to 25. Or if you really want some quality meals, it'll take you maybe an hour to cook, just depending on what you're cooking, right? And so when you think about the process of how long it takes and the patience that you have to have, think of that same situation of how you can take that same patience and apply it to life, right? Because when you look at the amount of work it takes to produce a great meal, you have to really look at the amount it takes, the time, the patience it takes for you to get to your greater version as well, right? Think of it like that. So it's interesting because we now live in a space where microwave success is a real thing. It's a real thought. It's a real feeling that I'm sure many people have, but you don't have to be one of those people to take that stereotype seriously, because I would think it's a very made up myth that having microwave success is actually going to get you to where you need to be. And that's absolutely false, right? So look at the gifts that God has given you and really apply all of your efforts, all of your energy towards that one thing and give it your all. Because I think it's interesting how sometimes we want to move past the process part of life and get to the success part without even developing first. And so you have to really ask yourself first, why do I want to get there so bad? What is it that I admire about that there season that right now I can't enjoy it? So something to think about. But what I was also thinking is that my core gifts and talents and abilities and preferences that God has given me, they are like seeds, right? They're seeds that are planted within me. And think about even gardening, right? But think about gardening, right? And how you have to water a seed, you have to water a plant, and it takes time and patience for that to grow. And sometimes when you plant something, it's not always beautiful. It's really not. It goes through its ugly stages. It goes through sunny days where sometimes it goes through a drought, or goes through, time where rain is pouring on it so much that you don't even know when is it going to blossom, and it needs time to get to its fullest root. So understanding that the seeds that God has planted inside of you take time to develop, but you have to take that development seriously. So point number 1 on what I want you to remember is you can't plant a seed today and expect a harvest tomorrow. It's really impossible. The amount it takes for a seed to be planted and for it to bloom and blossom to its fullest potential by tomorrow, by 24 hours. That's just not how even God created this world or this space to even happen. So look at your life and say to yourself, and ask yourself these questions. Why do I feel like I need to be in a hurry? What is it that's giving me maybe anxiety to feel like I'm going to miss out on something? Because FOMO, you guys, is a real thing. It's a real feeling. I've had it multiple times and still probably do. And sometimes I have to really take a step back and ask myself these questions. And I will ask myself these questions out loud and say, what is it that you're worried about? What is it that you are afraid of missing out on? And why do you feel that way? And then I will pray about it and ask God to give me clarity, because sometimes in the moments when you're feeling something, it's based off of temporary emotions. It really is. So you have to ask yourself, what is it that you are fearful of? What is it that you feel like you are missing out on? And address it. Because if you don't address it, it's going to build into this bigger emotion and feeling, and then it's going to turn into your actions, right? So if you can prevent something from happening, how about you just back up and ask yourself the question? Okay. So again, looking at cooking led me to just the patience you have to have when it comes to that. And then applying that to even life and say, why am I impatient in certain things? Why do I get riled up or worried or fearful of, again, missing out on something that maybe you're not supposed to be doing something, or you're not supposed to be there in that season, and God wants to show you something else, but you're not able to receive it because your eyes is focused on other things, okay? So you can't plant a seed today and expect to harvest tomorrow. So remove that expectation from your mind. You have to really look at development as the beauty process, right? Because if we abort the development process, we are compromising the power of the promise that God has placed within us. Let me say it again, okay? if we try to avoid the development process, there is probably something that we are going to miss out on because we are not taking the development process seriously. We are trying to skip over something. But what if something in that development season you were supposed to take, or you're supposed to meet someone, or you're supposed to take a certain skill that you would have only learned in that development process, and you try to skip over and go to their season, and you can't operate out of your fullest potential because you're missing something that you were supposed to learn in a previous season. You guys, okay. You don't have to listen to me. It's fine. But you're listening to this podcast for a reason. So when I tell you that I have thought about the times where I thought I was missing out on things, 9 times out of 10, God has showed me multiple times. Like, honey, you are not missing out on anything. Stop worrying about it and focus on me. Focus on what you're supposed to be learning now. And perfect it. Like, elevate your skill to another level. Okay, so let me pause and also share this. So I went to a conference yesterday over this past weekend. Jackie Hill Perry. Oh my gosh. First of all, it was my first time actually seeing her in person. When I say fire and powerhouse, God has, doing something in that woman right there. And what I loved about the whole conference was that she focused on women. She focused on just the idea of suffering and why suffering is important and how God has allowed suffering in our lives because it is a part of the development process. God allows us to suffer. Okay, he is not trying to, it's something he does so we can develop. And so when she said that, it was even a more light bulb moment for me, because we think as believers that we can just navigate through this life like it's gonna be so easy. Like, all right, I'm alive, I'm here, and here we go. What? No. Especially as a believer, honey, we are like destined to go through the wilderness, the storms, the rain. Okay, like we are destined to go through something. So like, stop trying to avoid it. But back to my point. So it was interesting because there was this young lady that asked a question, and because there was a moment where the audience can go up and ask a question. What I love about her question was that she was explaining how she's in this season of, she is open-hearted. She's like, I'm pouring out to God. I'm reading my Bible. I'm doing all these different things, and I'm ready for what's next. I'm ready for more. And she's like, I'm asking him all these questions. He's not showing me anything, and I don't know what to do. Like, you can just feel in her voice, and you can see in her character that she was ready for more. And so what I love that Jackie, the advice that she gave her was basically saying, have you asked God for reassurance in your current season? Have you learned everything that you're supposed to learn in this current season? And so it just really got me thinking that we think that we are ready for what's next, but sometimes we are trying to really move past and take our own life to another level before we even go back and study, before we even go back and really like reevaluate all the things that we did learn. And like, did we learn it just so we can say, oh, I learned it, I'm great? Or do we actually know how to apply it to the next season? And so I just loved how it even it had me reevaluate my life and my thoughts into, we are so quick to want what's next, even when we have learned the lesson. But it doesn't mean it's still our sign that it's time for us to graduate, right? It could be another thing to where I want you to elevate this skill to another level, because this is probably a primary thing that you need for the rest of your life. And this small lesson that you think is small is actually going to show up in a different way, in a different perspective, in a different light, in a different face, in a different person. And just because you learned it in kindergarten, can you go back and when you get to 10th grade and say, you know what, I remember this lesson? So, food for thought. Okay, something else when it comes to growing in dirty places. Okay. So, I have here 1 Corinthians 11:1. Something to really think about, because we must accept the fact that we will experience similar growth. If we are called to be like Christ, to become like him, as we are called by God, we must accept the fact that we will experience a similar growth process. So the interesting thing about life is that we often think it's supposed to be easy, what I just said, when everything falls apart. But we are broken but not destroyed. Development leads us to our full fruit. That is point number 2. Remind yourself that development leads you to full fruit. What I just basically said, that you have to take your development process seriously. And that doesn't mean that you're doing things halfway, you're doing things just to say that I've learned it, right? Because how many of us used to be in school? We were a student in school, and I'm sure there's many of you right now that you are performing at a 50% level. You're not performing at 100%. You are performing at 50. There are people in jobs right now, late every day, trying to do bare minimum just to get by, right? So you have to, again, talking to myself, because anytime I get on here, you guys, I'm speaking from personal experience. So it's a constant reminder that I tell myself, Danielle, you can't expect more of what God, like you can't expect more from God if you're not giving more of you. Ooh, let me say that again. You can't expect more of God if you're not giving more of you. Okay. And so that is pouring out from your fullest self, from your fullest potential at 100%, giving everything your all, not just one certain area. Not just this podcast series, but in your friendships, are you showing up? At work, are you showing up? Right? In your relationship, in your marriage, are you showing up 100%? Now, I will say last year was the time that I was really giving everything 50-50, because I was doing so many things that I really didn't have a lot to pour from. Now, if you're in that space, I encourage you to take a step back. I encourage you to really reevaluate all of the areas in your life and ask God, really, like, where do you want me to be? Where do you want me to pour into? Because it's so easy to get caught up in the things that we think that he wants us to do. But really for us, it's like he can say, honey, I've never called you to do that. And so that moment happened for me last year, you guys, not gonna lie. There were things that I was pouring into, and he really reminded me, I never told you to do that. So that's probably why you are empty right now. So I literally had to take a step back last year towards the end of the year. And I had to ask him and reevaluate, okay, where do you want me to pour from? What are the things that you want me to pour into, rather? Where do you want me to show up? Where do you want me to serve? How can I serve you, right? Because before we look at our selfish desires, are we asking him where he wants us to serve, okay? Things to think about. Lastly, this is my last point, because one thing about these podcast episodes, they will be short, okay? They're not going to be these 30 long, drawn out episodes, okay? First of all, I cannot talk that long. But I want you to think about this, okay? What if we were being presented with the opportunity to grow and to become what we are purposed and designed to become, but it required you to grow in a dirty space? Okay, so what does that mean? Let me give you context. The place that you are afraid of, right? Let me just tell you one thing. I'm afraid of the dark. Truly afraid of it. I even have this like fear in basements, right? Like I just, something about it, I'm not comfortable, right? And I've thought about, what if God was like, this is your home for the next 60 days. I want you to be here. I want you to be in the dark. I want you to be in the basement. Could you do it? Could you say, all right, God, here it is? Or would you say, you know what, let me think about it? Or would you say, I can't. I got other things to do. But really, like, what if this was the only place that you could grow from? a dirty space, a place where I wouldn't say even like, because I know God would not even do that to us, like put us in a space where there's like bugs and it's just crazy. No, but like a space where you're very fearful of, okay? That could be this space where, say you're avoiding a conversation with your parent, mom, dad, friend, whoever it is. What if you had to live with them for the next 60 days, right? Growing from that space. What if you had to live with a manager, a person that you don't like at work, right? Coworker, whoever. What if you had to grow from that space and being stuck with them in a room? So it's like thinking of those things. Do you have the character? Do you have the skill? Do you have the mindset? Do you have all the information you need to succeed on this next level? That's why development is important. That's why taking your season of where you are now is so critical to take it seriously. You have to. But I really want you to think about this question. So if you don't have a pen and paper, get it out and write this down. Knowing that your dirty places could be the very place that you will gain what is needed for your next phase of life, how would you respond to them differently? How would you respond? So I want you to think about that question, and I'll say this again for those who missed it. Knowing that your dirty places could be the very place that you will gain what is needed for your next phase of life, how would you respond differently? Now, before you even answer that, I want you to remember Romans 8:28. And I want you to remember this. Romans 8:28. And we know that all that happens to us is working for our good if we love our God and are fitted in his plans. So when you answer that question, when you think about how would you do things differently, also think of that. So knowing that God would not put you in a suffering situation if he knows that you couldn't handle it. And to be honest, you guys, I try to think about that very often, that when I'm battling through something, when I'm really being challenged in a different way, I really ask, what is it that you want me to learn here? What is it that you want me to take from this season, from this situation, from this experience? Because obviously what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing right now is for a reason. So what is it that you want me to experience? What is it that you want me to learn here? And so I ask that instead of looking at God as if, you know what, you are the person that I should be mad at. But like without looking at him like he's the bad guy. Like he is like the person that would really put me through this for just to be angry at me. No, there's something that he wants you to learn here. Okay. So with that, that's all I have for you guys today. Growing in dirty places and taking it seriously and knowing that you are where you're supposed to be at the right time and at the right place. So I encourage you to take time and reflect. Take time and really be still in the things that you're doing in all of the areas of your life, because where you are now is exactly where you're supposed to be. Okay, so I'm super excited to share more with you guys. If there's something specific that you would love to hear more on, just let me know. Comment on my YouTube video, or you can comment on the podcast episode as well. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys for listening in today. Have a great day.